But yeah, everyone, if you want to go check out that video real quick before we start, pretty interesting up there in the nest. Yeah. Oh, hello, TTAL 313. How's it going?
It's going good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you great. Awesome. Cool. Thanks for doing this, man.
Oh, no problem at all.
And should I call you TTAL or what do you want to be referred to as?
Yeah, just because of the nature of everything and how big and blown up this whole thing has gotten on Reddit, I'd rather like to stay anonymous. So you can call me TTAL. That's fine, just because I don't really want to use my real name.
Great. Sounds good. So why don't you maybe just kind of walk us through where you are in New Jersey, and kind of just the general vibe in the community and in the state with the drones before you saw something last night, and if you had seen anything up till that. But yeah, kind of put us in the mindset of what's going on in Jersey.
Absolutely. So I'll be honest, I was a little late to the news when this whole drone thing started. I first heard about it and it came to my attention, I think it was like Friday. So it was already going on for about a week or two at that point. And the reason, and actually the first person that told me was my father, because he has a Ring doorbell and kept getting the neighborhood alerts of people seeing drones. And when I first heard it, I thought it was just like, regular like hobby type drones. Didn't really think much of it. And yeah, then it was like, that was like a week ago. And then Friday, I finally like saw the news. I'm not looking at the news every day. So saw the news. I was like, oh, this is like a whole thing. And I downloaded the Ring, doorbell neighborhood app thing, saw a bunch of people saying things in my area. I'm just about, I believe, like less than 10 miles from Picatinny Arsenal, where that was an area where I guess, some drones are reported being. So I was like kind of in the thick of it. At the same time, I am in, I believe, either an approach or, I think it's like an approach of Newark Airport. So like I see planes all the time coming, near my house. So to be honest, half the ones I saw online to me looked more like planes probably and misidentified aircraft than drones. So again, really didn't think much of it at all. Every time I'm outside, I kind of take a peek up recently, but not really expecting to see anything. But again, the Ring doorbell app going off almost every night recently, so it kept me a little on edge. You get at least the look up in the sky. So that's, I guess, fast forwards to yesterday, where I was literally just leaving my kitchen door. I was going to throw some garbage out because we have some garbage cans right out there. And I just looked up and I saw the light that's in the video. And the first thing I did was grab my phone. I start recording, and I was honestly in shock because it was just, I knew this wasn't a plane. I've seen what planes look like. It also was, pretty bad weather. So at the time of that video, earlier that day, we had some snow. There was like maybe an inch and a half of snow on the ground at most. By the time that video was recorded, it melted a little bit. So there's a dusting of snow on the ground, and we were having like a weather, like a snow rain mix. So it wasn't really raining at that point. It was still like a snow rain mix, kind of some sleet. And we had some good wind gusts too. So I'm like right at the beginning of the valley here. So there's like I'm literally like right in front of my house is the mountain. And I'm like the first house that begins the valley. So we get some strong winds that come down the mountain and hit us. So we were having like sustained, I think someone else got the actual weather report, but I think like 5 or 6 mile per hour sustained winds, like 20, 30 mile per hour gusts. And, I look up, I see that light, and I'm just like, this isn't a plane. It's way too low. I can actually see like the reflection of the light off of clouds, which I thought was really interesting. And I was just in shock, honestly. I didn't know what to think. It was one of those situations where everyone always, wonders why you get such crappy video of something. It's because I literally didn't even know what to do. It froze, and then it just disappeared. And when it disappeared in the video, that's when it disappeared. I never saw it again after that. I stopped recording. I waited outside for about another 10, 15 minutes, looking all around the sky, never saw it again. And that was that. And then from there, I posted on Reddit, and I guess that leaves us to where we are now.
Wow, so interesting. Could you maybe describe the kind of particulars of how far away it was from you? And I don't know if you already saw, I posted it, right? And people are already commenting, that's a star. Do you have any responses to people saying like that's a star or that's a planet? And like, yeah, how far was it? How far away is it up in those trees? And it's great that you got just that description of how windy and rainy it was, because I do think that's kind of an interesting component to this video too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know exactly what it is. I mean, that's why I posted it. And, I I think it's funny because some of the criticism that is on Reddit, on the UFO subreddit, is that it's not interesting enough, or it's not, it's not, you know, a saucer. I'm like, no, but by definition, it's a UFO. I don't know what it is. What I would say, based on my experience, is I don't believe it was a star. You can clearly see it moving around in just a way that doesn't make sense. Again, I don't know how good it came out in the video, but I could actually see reflection of the light on other clouds. So to give some, and that to me means it was pretty low. So you ask about how far. Again, really hard to judge. Because I don't know how bright that the light actually was. So I mean, look, if it wasn't as bright, maybe it was a couple hundred feet. Maybe it was super bright and it was 1,000 feet up in the air. But because of how dense the clouds were, my guess is at most probably like 200 feet up in the air. And I could actually see reflection on, like, again, bottom, like parts of the cloud. So to me, again, I'm thinking a couple hundred feet at most. But again, very hard to judge. I'm sure someone that really cares can probably look up where, like, how many feet the cloud line started or something like that with the storm or something like that. I'm sure that's possible to look up. But to me, it was like probably just right in the clouds, like at that base level of clouds.
So like above the tree still? Like
I would say it was above
tree?
the tree. Yeah, I mean, if the tree is maybe like 60, 70 feet, my guess is this was probably like, again, maybe 150 to 200. But again, it's really hard to judge based on a light because I don't really know how bright it was. To me, it was very bright. But, in fairness to people, skeptics out there, LED lights now are like super bright. So like, again, I don't know what, again, this is where I just can't speculate. I don't 100% know, but to me, it couldn't have been more than a couple hundred feet because I don't think you would have seen it. Just the clouds were super thick. If it was like 400 or 500 feet up in the air, I have a feeling you could have had like a super bright light and you just would not see it. I think the only reason I got a view of it as clearly as I did is because it was a little bit on the lower side, which I will say does to me make me think it's not a drone, or at least a hobbyist drone or any sort of basic commercial drone, because I don't think you'd be able to fly it into those clouds and know where you are, is the truth of it. You wouldn't be able to see anything.
Okay, yeah, and I agree with you there too, that the windiness and the clouds are like a good, at least they're adding to. I'm curious to see what McWest is going to say when he looks at all this. Did you see anything before or after that was kind of or like, yeah, you said you saw it before. Do you have any idea of what it was doing, or like what your gut tells you it was doing?
Honestly, no clue. I know some people have speculated that it's like, oh, once it's seen, that's when it wants to, disappear or turn off its lights and stuff like that. I don't know if that was the case. I mean, I saw it. Some people say it was being playful, on Reddit. I kind of, to some extent, agree with that. It was going in and out. It looked to me like it was almost doing some sort of weird circle that would, the only way, and this is not what I think it was actually doing, but the only way I could describe it is almost like some sort of dance, where it was kind of going around in a circle. It was coming in and out. The actual light was almost changing shape at times when it was going in and out, in a way. So again, hard to probably see on the video. And I will say too, for people wondering, because I've been asked this a bunch of times, it was filmed on a Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4. So that was the phone it was captured on. Yeah, it looked like it was almost changing shape and moving around, and then it just disappeared. Again, my gut is telling me that I honestly have no clue. That's I'm not going to speculate because I just seriously do not know. All I would say, and again, going back to people that are thinking it's a plane or thinking it's a star, look, I look at stars all the time. I love looking up. I've never seen a star move around like that. I've never seen, I've seen shooting stars too. Never seen one like that. Also, you wouldn't have seen it with this type of cloud coverage. I mean, it was not great. So again, I can't answer that question perfectly, but I can just tell you that I don't believe it was those type of things.
Okay, and then another question about the video in particular, when it like, so you see the light kind of going off and going on. Do you suspect that it's all the same kind of light the whole time?
Yeah, again, it did look like it almost changed shape or direction, and just from my perspective, it changed shape. Again, hard to tell the difference there when you're looking at something up in the air.
How did the
But
shape change?
it, I would say when it was like, I don't know if maybe change is even the wrong word. It almost was more like maybe at times the light was shining more towards me, and other times it was shining a different direction. Maybe it was just a very directional light. Hard to say, but like it almost looked like it was more, oval in certain as it was maneuvering at times. So I just think it was like positioning of whatever it was, if I had to guess. But again, that's pure speculation. I really can't. I can't really say perfectly. But that's the way it looked to me. So it almost looks like if someone's holding a flashlight and maybe they're not shining it at you, but they're shining it towards, to the right of you, you can kind of still see like a beam of light in the air that even though it's not towards you, that's almost kind of that same thing. It
Okay.
just was changing the shape in that regard. Again, was that what was happening? I don't know, but that's just kind of what it looked like to my eyes.
Okay, cool. And then a few more about the particulars of the video. So when the light goes off, do you think that's like whatever the light source is turning itself light off, or do you think that's it getting like maybe farther away beyond the cloud cover?
Again, hard to say. And take this with a grain of salt because I mean everyone has different opinions on this type of stuff. Once the light disappeared in the video, I personally felt like it was gone. There was just like, I don't know. I went into that, adrenaline mode. Once I saw the light, I started recording. Once that light left for that final time, like I felt better. And then I started having my senses came back. I was like, oh, what did I just capture? My brain was starting to work again. So I personally felt like it was gone, but I will say the clouds were very thick. If it went up another, hey, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 feet, 100 feet, I don't know how fast it was really moving. It could have definitely disappeared in the clouds. But again, it's hard for me to say, for sure.
Now this might seem like a little left field, but you had the high adrenaline sense, right? When it left, it went away. Is there any, and again, we're all speculating here, is there any sense you felt like something from that light source was like affecting you or your recording abilities maybe or anything like that? Or do you think it was purely like adrenaline on your end, seeing something you didn't know how to explain?
Really tough call there. I don't. The truth is, I don't know. To be, because one of the complaints people have on Reddit was I wasn't moving the phone to the light, and the truth of it, whether people like it or not, is I was watching it with my eyes. I wasn't being a good videographer on my phone, following it. If I didn't have my phone in my hand when I left my kitchen, I probably wouldn't have even thought to even click record. Is the truth of it. Just because I saw the light, I was in shock, and I was watching it with my own eyes. So I don't know if that was, part of that was because of something it could have been doing to me, or just my human instincts kicking in of adrenaline, like, hey, I'm seeing something that I can't explain. But I will say I have seen things I couldn't exactly explain before. Nothing like this. But I've seen what I've been traveling out west before. I've seen what I could describe as like weird balloon type things, maybe weather balloons, weird things like that. I've never had that sense of adrenaline rush, even though I couldn't explain what it was. So this was definitely different. But again, with all the hype going on in the news, and then me finding out about this, on Friday, and then come come Monday, I see this. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say. So I don't want to completely speculate, but I can definitely tell you the way it affected me, whether it was me doing it to myself or the light. It definitely just, that adrenaline came in and I was in complete shock.
Like nothing you've ever experienced before, right, in your whole life?
Nothing like I've ever experienced before.
Okay, and then a little more on the video itself. That light source, was there any sense that you could pick up on that like wasn't in the video that you want to convey, or like did you suspect it was like a glowing orb, the whole thing, or did it seem like that was just part of a bigger craft, maybe?
Hard to say, but what I can say is it seemed nimble to me. Like I would not think, I mean, again, it really depends on how fast these things are moving. But if it was a large craft, it just seemed a little too small, to me. Like, as much as I don't want to compare it to a star, because I don't know what it is, but I will 100% say I do not believe it was a star. but it was about the size of a star. If you were looking at it in your night sky, so it wasn't gigantic. It wasn't a gigantic light source. It was it was fairly small when I look up in the sky. So to me, it seemed nimble because it was moving fast. So I would imagine it was on the smaller side. But again, could it be a little light on a bigger ship or something? Look, I don't know. Hard to say, but it definitely was moving fast where either it was small and nimble, or if it was large, it was at a very quick speed.
And it seems like in the video, like pretty unaffected by the weather, right? Like, did you pick up on anything like that, like wind resistance or anything? It just kind of like cut through it all like butter.
It was cutting through it like butter. That's actually another disagreement I see a lot of people saying, where some people say it looks like a drone struggling in the weather. It did not look like that to me in real life. To me, it was kind of cutting through the clouds, and it seemed like it was intentionally doing what it was doing. It did not seem like, it was a drone struggling with the weather or anything like that. It seemed to be doing what it wanted to do.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else you want to say about the video that you think might not have got in it? And then I want to maybe ask you more about stuff you maybe heard around town. And then I see Dean here is trying to request. Maybe we'll bring him up for a bit. But I do want to keep these kind of like short and concise. But yeah, TTAL. Anything else you want to add that's not in the video? Was your family around? Did you show your family the video?
I did. So yeah, no, I had my wife was right in the kitchen. My son was in the kitchen. Actually, some people are saying like, what's the cat screaming in the background? It was actually my son screaming right in the kitchen. Like this was during dinner. We were wrapping dinner up, throwing out some garbage. This all happened. And yeah, I immediately go in, showed my wife immediately. She was in shock. So it was definitely a weird experience for sure. As far as just anything else, what I want to be very clear on one thing. I do not know what it is. I am a believer, but at the same time, I try to be a skeptic, and I am not here for trying to convince anyone of what it really is. I will tell you what I don't think it is, but I don't know what it is though. So for people trying to argue that I faked the video or anything like that, because there's a lot of that obviously on Reddit, I can definitively say that was not the case. Now, could it have been a neighbor down the street trying to mess with people with their drone? Maybe. I can't say one way or the other. Do I think that's what it was? No. But I'm not trying to push anything on anyone. This is just this is just what I saw, and I was lucky to capture it, and it came out to be a pretty good recording. And that's all I really have, honestly. So I wanted to clarify that, because the internet's a little crazy at times.
Yeah, the internet's crazy. I almost feel bad too. There's a whole sub thing that's phenomenal that needs to be studied about the UFO witness and what happens to them after they see something. Hopefully I'm not being too overbearing or anything.
No, not at all. I mean, actually, I posted about that after the fact too. And I appreciate you guys. You seem to be, willing to listen. But I made a post about this where it was like this type of behavior totally discourages people from reporting things they saw. Because if you're just going to be said you're crazy, or people are going to make things up, or say you faked the video or CGI, I'm like, really? That's where we're going with this? I mean, hey, I've been upfront. I've given everyone that's wanted the original video clip from my phone. I've given to, I showed video of where I was standing, because people were like, I'm inside. It's a reflection with an iPhone through a window. And I'm like, yeah, sure. That's what it is. Again, I'm not trying to tell you what it is, but I know it's not that, so I've tried to give everyone the proof I can. My one security camera is in view of the video too. People wanted that video. I send that video to people to show hey, you can actually see me filming at least. I've tried to be transparent with everyone as much as I can be. But yeah, you can't please everyone. So that's just the internet for you.
And I think it's probably the last question I have on the video itself. And then I want to move to anything you've heard around town. But would you say from the videos you've seen around Jersey and stuff too, to me at least, it feels like there's a few things going on. There's these orbs, and then there's also the mystery drones that look a little more mechanical. Would you agree that this kind of what you witnessed seems a little different than the other videos of the FAA light mystery drone things?
100%. And that's actually, again, I'm a believer. I want to believe in everything. When I first heard the drone thing and I saw the video, I was just like, these are some commercial drones. These are aircraft. A bunch of them are that's a helicopter. I know what these things are. And, these don't look like a traditional UFO, maybe UFO by definition, because we don't know exactly what it is, but it was different. This to me was not that. This was just a white light. I did not see any sort of, navigational indicators. There was no flashing lights that I could see. It was just one big bright white light. That's all I saw. So yeah, some sort of orb or whatever you want to describe it as. I'll let other people do that. But yeah, it definitely seemed different than other things I saw online.
Cool, thank you. And actually, real quick, I think I'm going to bring Dean up first. Dean, if you want to hop in on any other questions you have about the video, and then do you want to ask TTAL about stuff he's heard around town, and just the general vibe of the community. Probably not going to bring anyone else up just because I do want to keep these kind of short and concise. But Logan or someone will have a space later if everyone wants to just kind of hang out and talk. But yeah, Dean, do you have anything you want to ask TTAL about the video?
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much, Red. I was wondering, one, because you mentioned it, if you would DM me the video as well. I would really appreciate that. You are not alone seeing orbs like this that show up in a really bright white light. So you're not alone in this. There's a guy down in Peru who recently had a spate of events with a very brilliant white light orb that was near his house. And I believe you're seeing exactly what he was seeing. Is this the first time? I came in kind of late when you first started talking, and then I had to refresh and I totally lost everything. So you may have said this already. Is this the very first time you've not only captured on video, but the first time you've seen what you believe to be a UAP or a UFO?
So, so first off, yes, I'll absolutely DM you the videos after we get off here. So no problem there. Yeah, this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. I do believe I have seen, again, what I'll classify as a UFO because I don't know what it is. When I was traveling in the West, like Southern California in the desert, I was traveling to San Diego once, and I saw only what I can believe to be like some sort of high altitude weather balloon, very high up in the atmosphere. I really hard to see what it was because it was extremely far up, and it's very different than where I'm in New Jersey, where you can't, in Jersey, because of trees, mountains, something, you can't, or just the clouds, you can't see more than honestly 1,000 feet in front of you or above you almost at any given time. I feel like over there you can see tens of thousands, or sometimes, hundreds of miles, in front of you or around you without any obstacles. So I really couldn't tell you what it was. That's why I would call it a UFO. But I have seen that. But that never gave me a weird, feeling like this. I think it was a very different thing. And that could have been very explainable. That could have literally been a weather balloon or something like that. But that would be the only other experience I've ever had seeing anything.
Yeah, when I had my first experience, I felt there was a little bit of actual telepathic communication going on, as I thought to myself. Now, this was back in 1995, so there wasn't really a camera phone to be had, and if you did, it was absolutely horrible. But I thought to myself, should I go in and get my camera? And immediately, this communication, or whatever you'd like to call it, told me, no, you don't need your camera. And then I was thinking, should I go in and get my phone? No, you don't need to go get your phone. We won't be here very long. We're not going to hurt you, and we'll be gone. And it was a very surreal, very peaceful communication. And the whole time I was watching it, and tell me, and I'm saying this because I'd like to see how you compare to your feelings when you were witnessing this. It was very surreal. I felt very calm. Normally throughout our days, we're busy. We have 10 million things literally running through our mind at times. So we keep on schedule and this, that, and the other. I had zero thoughts. I mean, my mind was at ease, at peace, with nothing going on other than I'm just looking at this object above me 200 feet away. I was wondering, does any of that apply to you?
Yeah, a lot of it does actually. So I was not afraid of it at all.
Yeah.
whether it was because of my, or just regular human response to it, or because it was doing something to me, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate there because I really just don't know. But that adrenaline rush came over, but I wasn't afraid, but it did clear my mind. I was not thinking about anything, while that light was there. Everything kind of came flooding back in as soon as it disappeared, and life kind of, came back to reality. If you told me, like, if you asked me without me recording it, like, oh, how long was it? How long did you see the light? I could have told you 10 minutes because it just flew by. Like I couldn't tell you, like, I lost time there almost. But I think that I do believe that was just kind of my human, natural response to it is the truth
Right.
of it, of me just being in shock. But I was calm, wasn't afraid. I also agree that I don't think I would have filmed it if I didn't have my phone in my hand. That was the only thing that I think got me. I saw a light and I wasn't sure what I saw. And I grabbed the phone, I clicked record, and luckily on my phone I have it set. So if I click the lock button twice, it brings up the camera. So I just immediately started recording. And by then I was locked in and I was already feeling in that calm state. And I think if it just happened 2 seconds quicker, or I didn't have my phone in my hand, I agree. I think I agree with you. I don't think I would have I'm going to go inside and grab it. Because at the same time, what if you don't want it to disappear either, while you may only have a matter of seconds to see it, to go grab your phone. Because by the time I get my phone and I would have come back outside, it would have been gone. So I just don't, but I don't also think I would have had that rationality even trying to go get the phone. It was just a weird, again, words are tough to describe this, but it was just a weird experience where it had me hooked in. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was calm, but I was also the adrenaline was high. I had no clue what I was seeing, and my mind was clear. But it all came flooding back really quick the second it went away. And that's why I do believe, to some extent, it actually left. Because the second it was gone, it was coming back in. Other times it was kind of fading in and out. And there were times I didn't see it in the video. It just kind of disappeared. I still felt that. But the last time that it disappeared, that all just came flooding back, and I was feeling better. And then I'm my mind was trying to comprehend what I was seeing at that point. But it definitely was similar to what you described.
Okay, that's very interesting. And lastly, so I can let Red have his space back. It looks like it's maybe one street over from you, maybe 2 streets over. Can you tell me what you estimate the distance to be from your location?
Yeah, great question. So I would say a street over. So if you see in the video, people have speculated too about the different lights and everything. Someone was like, it's police lights, or, no, it's that every neighbor pretty much has Christmas lights up. So in the house, you see directly, in the video, directly towards where the light was, that's a street over. That house was kind of illuminated weird, or the front of it was, and you kind of see the hue of it. It was Christmas lights. It looked to me like it was kind of over I don't want to say right above the house. I may have been to the right a bit, but it was kind of in that plane. So near that street, I don't think you can actually see it in the video because there's trees there, but it's essentially on the near the street of that house. So yeah, about a street over.
Okay, that's not very far at all. Could you gain any even just a rough guess, an estimation of size, or was it too overcast, cloudy, foggy, rain, whatever, to really determine that?
So yeah, I answered this before, but again, it was really hard to tell you exactly because it was foggy, and again, depending on how bright the light was, I feel like it could be, if it wasn't that bright, it could be a lot lower. If it was super, super bright, it could probably be a lot higher. But to me, it couldn't really have been more than a couple 100 feet at most because of just the way the clouds were. The clouds were really low. And I think if it was too high, I don't think any brightness you would have seen, honestly. It was just very dense clouds. So my guess is it was 200-ish, feet, maybe, plus 100, minus 50, somewhere in there. And to me, it was either a very small, nimble, light, because it was moving pretty fast at times, coming in and out of the clouds, right. Or if it was something bigger, it was, again, moving very fast. To me, my brain makes me think it has to be smaller just because of the way it was moving. But if it was a bigger, kind of craft of some sort hiding in the clouds. All I saw was that light. So to me, if it was big, I only saw like the tip of the iceberg, and it was still moving incredibly fast for something big. But more likely, I believe it was something on the smaller side, if I really had to guess.
Okay. Well, maybe later on at some point, you and I can get together on the side and we can exchange a little bit more detail on experiences. Red, thank you for letting me jump in and ask a few questions. I appreciate it. And back to you.
Sweet. Yeah. And for the closer thing, I just kind of wanted to get some TTAL, if there's anything you've heard around town, any interesting sightings or any rumors, anything like that that you think is kind of worth sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been kind of glued to everything, especially today, since what happened last night. I didn't see anyone else, specifically see what I saw, from last night that I could tell. But there's been so many reports. Like I said, I'm about less than 10 miles from Picatinny Arsenal, which I know there were, sightings of something over there. There's been tons of sightings. So everyone's kind of on edge. I will say, again, for the skeptics out there, I'm sure that also brings people trying to mess with other people. So again, I can't definitively say like it's not a drone or something like that, or a neighbor trying to mess with people. I really don't know. I don't think it was. But I will say I've heard tons of people in the community that are saying drones are out every night. That's what people are saying. I'm sure some of them are just your normal hobbyist drones trying to either find other drones or just mess with people. So I'm sure that's been happening. I know people have reported that. But everyone is kind of on edge around here in general. Every night on the neighborhood like Ring app, there's been, people reporting drones. One person will report something, and then you look at the comments, and some of these I've never seen in the neighborhood app this much activity before, where sometimes there's like 50, 60 comments. Normally in the neighborhood app, it's people complaining about like people mowing their lawn at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and you have like 3 or 4 comments. So it's kind of crazy how much it's blown up. And I will say, for what it's worth, I don't know how people can find it, but there's tons of footage on the neighborhood app too, but it like localizes it to your area. So I'm sure there's way more footage out there of things that are just like tied up in an app like that, which I'm not sure how, people can get access to unless you live in that like local area, but something worth looking into, because I think there's tons of stuff on there. Nothing to me that looks like what I saw, but people are on edge around here. I talked to one of my neighbors today about what happened, and he's been looking up, and everyone's just wondering what's going on.
What are some of the interesting videos you've seen on the neighborhood app?
Yeah, so again, I want to clarify that I have a feeling a lot of what I've seen on the neighborhood app probably is not anything in the realm of what we're talking about. I do believe a lot of it's, like probably planes being misidentified, probably hobbyist drones at times. There are other things where I can't really explain. I don't know, but they don't look anything like I captured. But it's just tons of. I just feel like it's a natural place where if people, especially older people, quite honestly, that maybe aren't going to post something on Reddit or on social media, they want to know if their neighbor saw it. They post it on the neighborhood app, and some of it's exactly what everyone's been seeing online. But I have a feeling there's things there that probably aren't other places, just because it tends to be, I feel like, an older community there in a way. But it's a lot of the same stuff we've seen online. I'm sure there's some unique stuff. I can't say I've seen anything really on there that's like, wow, this is amazing. Like I can't say I've seen that, but I do think it's an interesting resource. But again, you only see on the neighborhood app things that are in like your local community. Like I think it's like 5 miles. So, that's how it works. So you put your address in, you see what's in your local community. Outside of that, who knows what's there? I'm sure there's some good stuff on there.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And then, what was it? Okay. The next question I want to ask you is, what do you think about the messaging, like the different messaging coming from like the White House and from Homeland Security kind of saying it's all prosaic. And then we have like local congressmen, mayors from New Jersey saying that like, no, they're kind of trying to whitewash everything. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, that's such an interesting, point to this whole thing. Yeah, it's really interesting because look, I think it's irresponsible of the federal government to say all you're experiencing is misidentified aircraft, whether it's manned aircraft or drones or commercial, hobbyist drones, commercial drones, whatever. I think that might be like 80%, 85%, maybe even 90% true. Just because I think, these sightings happened. Everyone's going out. Everyone's going to report everything just because they don't know what it is. And the truth is most people don't know what probably a plane looks like at night if they're not really paying attention. So the first time they see, they really are paying attention when at night, they're freaking out, and they think it's something. So I would understand, and I agree to a point that I'm sure 80 percent to 90% of those what people experience are probably explainable in one of those things the federal government's saying. But that last chunk of percentage, I feel like it's just so irresponsible to say that what people are seeing isn't real. Again, how much is it actually happening? Are these more isolated situations? Probably, and who knows how much this is actually happening. But I think it's irresponsible, and obviously there are many people in the last couple of weeks that have seen things that they really can't explain. There's some people that should should know what they're seeing. So I've heard reports in New Jersey of police officers that are actually trained drone operators and licensed drone operators for the police department that know what drones look like. Obviously, they're going to have a basic understanding of aviation because they're a licensed drone operator, and they do this. They're a drone operator for the police department for a reason. They're going to know the difference between a plane, a helicopter, a drone, right? And when I see one of those police officers said there's 50 drones coming in from the ocean coming into New Jersey. Well, that's going to make me stop and think, what's going on here? Because that person should know what they're looking at and what they're seeing. And I tend to believe that police officer. I'm not going to not believe that police officer when they should know what they're looking at. Now, if they don't, and there's some lack of training there or something, well, then, that's a whole other problem. But that's not the answer for every single one of these situations. So to me, people are seeing real stuff. I'm sure much of it is what the federal government says, which is probably misidentified, but there's still a chunk that isn't. And I think what the federal government is doing is has to be hiding something, because there's no way they don't know what's going on. I don't believe that for a second. I feel like they know exactly what it is. I think, interestingly enough, what Trump said yesterday about the government knows what this is. Don't know why they're not telling you. I feel like he was briefed on it. He can't say anything right now, but I think that was a very interesting, thing. And that literally came out about 2 hours before I saw what I saw. And it's no, the government 100% knows. So I don't know why they're hiding it. I don't know what this is. Again, I don't know what the light was. Maybe it was something.
If you had a guess, right? I know you've been very tempered of you don't want people to think that we're speculating and all that stuff, right? You're not saying anything for sure. But if you had to guess that remaining 20%, what do you think is going on over there?
Okay, so one of two things. I have two guesses. But one, they all have issues in my head, but I'll give you my rationality. I think there's a very good possibility that it's some sort of military experimental aircraft, some sort of drones, something like that. I would not put it past, the military. And of course, if that was the case, yeah, we're probably not going to hear about it. Why? Well, I've heard a bunch of different, reasonings. I got into a pretty good conversation with someone after I saw what I saw last night. Obviously, I've had tons of people reach out to me, and there's been reports of potential, looking for high amounts of radiation, maybe because there's a dirty bomb or something like that in New Jersey, New York area, and they're looking for that, and these drones are trying to detect that. I've heard other reports that radiation levels have been up in the area. Obviously, I have no way of confirming or knowing if any of that is true. And that's not something obviously mainstream media is talking about. So again, all speculation. But I will say, for what it's worth, if there was some sort of dirty bomb or a nuke gone missing or anything like that, I am more than sure the military would have some drones and weird aircraft detecting it. And I am more than sure they would not tell us, because New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the country. We're right next to New York. If it was public information that there's a bomb somewhere or nuke went missing or whatever, you would have mass panic, and it'd be terrible for this area. You'd have millions of people between New York and New Jersey trying to leave. It'd be rioting, and, it would not be good. So I would understand the government being secretive about something like that. And, I've heard several people talk about that. So could something like that be the case? Sure. The problem that I have with that is so many of these reportings have the navigational blinky lights. And to me, that's not real stealth. If you have a secret government mission and you're trying to, hide, or trying to hide what you're doing, I don't think you need to be following your FAA procedures for your little blinky flashing navigational lights. So that one gets me. Same thing with if it's some aliens coming down from space to investigate us. They're not going to have the FAA flashing blinky lights. So either all of those lights that, those reports of drones or craft or whatever you want to call it that have those, the blinking lights, either all of them to me are misidentified, craft, or there's something else going on that I just simply don't have any clue. Because to me, that's what doesn't make sense. That what I saw, I didn't see any sort of flashing lights. I didn't see that. So what I saw, I think, is a little bit different. But it just, to me, it's unexplainable. Every way I look at it, it doesn't make sense. If it's aliens, I don't get it. Maybe what I saw is more like that, but from a lot of the other videos I've seen, I don't buy it. If it's some government secret mission, I just feel like if they just didn't have the lights on, we wouldn't even know they're there. And so it's like that would make a lot more sense to me. So why are they advertising to be there? Whatever it is, I feel like they want to be seen. Whether it's these, whether it's just, I don't know. I mean, it can't all just be people messing with people, because it's a too big of a scale. But whether it's people just trying to play pranks on people, or some sort of test flights for a new drone technology, or aliens, or anything, military, whatever it is, they kind of want to be seen. Because if it was really that secret, I feel like you just turn the lights off.
Nice. And thank you, TTAL. I'm probably going to wrap up here soon because I do have to get going. But I did bring up Modern Leper here real quick because he saw stuff in Arizona, and I think he saw what he saw. And I did a witness assessment with him about 2 days ago, I think it was. And his are kind of look more like what you're saying, like kind of these plasma energy balls. I'll try and throw it up in the nest while Modern Leper speaks. How you doing, bro?
Hey, thanks, man. First off, TT, man, I totally vibe with everything you said almost. And thank you for presenting everything. And yeah, just super appreciative. And Red, I'll be quick. I know you're trying to close this out. The last 2 nights, first of all, I've been seeing these things since the end of November. I've got hundreds of videos. I'm happy to share with people and stuff. Initially, it was the metal ones, and I was like, TT, I'm thinking, man, they look like drones and stuff. But they come every night. I sit up on my roof and I watch them. And they hover at that same altitude he kind of mentions, but I've had them come as low as 40 feet. And when they get really close, you can see some definition there. And yeah, they do look mechanical. And he were talking about kind of feelings and stuff. There's a different feeling when those are around me than there is when those light orbs that have been showing up the last 2 nights show up. And I tried to kind of post some videos, but last night I had something that is close to what TT show up. And it was there briefly, and it was the same thing where it was like, if my phone wasn't in my hand, I wouldn't have recorded it. And there was actually a point where I and I don't want to be that guy, but yeah, I kind of dropped to a knee and I just kind of didn't know what to think for a moment. But I will say that when the light orb things are around the mechanical things, they seem to interact with each other. And what I've observed is those mechanical ones approaching the light ones. And then the only way I can describe it is if it slowly approaches and then makes contact and then gets thrown away, like in some random direction at a weird, crazy speed. But I wanted to say the radiation stuff. This has been in Tucson. This is happening in Bullhead City. It's happening in Phoenix. If there was some dirty bomb they were looking for, they wouldn't send that. There's got to be thousands of these in the sky every night over the different cities that are reporting it. And I just can't imagine the logistics of putting that many radiation sniffers up in the sky and then lighting them up with red and green to let us all know that they're up there. So yeah, I respect, and I've seen those theories too, but I do think it's something else. So, but yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, I'll just add to that too. I agree with your thought there of it just not making sense for them just detecting radiation, and it's too much. It's. I mean, there's reports in Ohio of these. You're in Arizona. I've seen reports in California. You're right. Though what I would love to see, and hey, if I gotta find out how to buy a what do they call it? One of those radiator one of the
Geiger
detectors,
counter type thing.
the Geiger counter. There you go. If I gotta buy one and see if I can get one on Amazon, I totally will. But I have heard reports. I'd love to I'd love to find out if this is actually true of just higher radiation levels in these areas where these drones have been seen. Because then other people were saying, hey, maybe the drones or whatever these lights are, or whatever they're seeing, are causing the elevated radiation. And if that's the case, that's a whole other can of worms. So that's interesting.
Dean, what do you got on that? I know you've been following this really closely as well.
Yeah, as far as Geiger counters, you can get them on Amazon for less than $100 for the El Cheapos, and if you want to get something a little better, of course, that goes up. I was actually going to speak about locations. There was some articles and announcements a little bit earlier, just before I came on here. Air Force, I think it's Hill Air Force Base in Nebraska, has now been inundated with drones, as they call it. So there's another Air Force base that's now included in the list. What about this for a theory? I'd like to get your thought on this. I think possibly what may be happening is that the government is turning this into a drone incursion to distract away from what's really happening. Possibly, and I'm just throwing this out there, possibly some real drone activity UAP activity that has really peaked in the past week or so. And the government's trying to use drones as a cover-up method to kind of blur the line there, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's very likely, honestly. Because I just feel like people are seeing two different things. I think some of what people are seeing are probably some sort of drones. I mean, big drones, probably military-style drones, but they're some sort of legal aircraft. And then other things that people are seeing, like myself, I just can't categorize like that. I mean, sure, could it be? And, I don't want to say in definitives one way or the other, but at the same time, I just feel like maybe you're right. The government is trying to cover it up, and to just what do you do if you need to create disinformation? You just flood it with more information that. So I think you definitely could be onto something. I just still don't know why, and I'm sure this is another can of worms that we don't have to really go into. But I just don't know why the government is so apprehensive to tell us some more truth. I feel like it's like one door opens and we step forward, and then all of a sudden we go backwards again. It's like I feel like disclosure is happening more and more, and then hey, the rug gets pulled out from underneath us, and we go back. And I just don't know how many times this is going to be able to be allowed to happen anymore, because I feel like you can't hide it anymore. We got the internet, people are talking. People were wondering when my video was going to get taken down from Reddit. I'm surprised it's still up, honestly. But like, you can't hide these things anymore. It gets too big, and I feel like it's just any day now the truth is going to come out, and I don't know why they're working so hard to hide it, because there's a lot going on there too. How much money does it cost for the government to send out these thousands of drones to be masking real sightings? Like, you're talking about millions of dollars, maybe tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. Who's paying for that? How is that being allocated? There's so many rabbit holes you can go down that I just don't understand why they keep doing it.
Yeah. My read on it all is I think it seems like there's two NHI groups. I'll just go all out and say it. The orbs and the weird transforming mechanical drones seem to be interacting with each other, and maybe not necessarily on the same side, but I don't know. I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. Okay. Well, any closing thoughts from anyone on the panel? And then we'll probably close out here. And TTAL, stick around on UFO Twitter. I mean, this place can be kind of crazy, and you too, Modern Leopard. But like, oftentimes people see something, it kind of just triggers their brain, and they have now like an eternal scratch that they have to itch with this stuff. And I found this place to be fairly good on that. There's a lot of people who've seen stuff too, and you can kind of just talk and express ideas pretty openly. But it can get crazy here too. So yeah, keep it with the TTAL and stuff like that, and Modern Leopard with his face all covered. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I appreciate everyone listening. And, it's funny now that this has happened to me, like, I don't know what I saw, but I guess I'm now part of the community, because now I'm super interested in this when it wasn't something I was super interested in before. So I'll definitely be sticking around and just doing my research and looking outside a lot more. Right? I'll definitely be setting up some cameras, looking upward, and trying to see what I could capture again in the future, if anything. And I appreciate everyone for everything they said and listening to my story.
Yeah, and that would be great if you did too, because you're right by Picatinny Arsenal. I think there was someone who commented. I don't know if they're serious or not. They said they'd buy you that Geiger counter. I'll put it up in the nest if you want to maybe DM them after. I don't know. I don't know this person. But yeah, you're right in the heat of it. It seems so that would be kind of helpful. Yeah, Dean and Modern Leper. Any closing thoughts?
Just real quick, if you're going to be shutting down the space, Red, I'll and if anybody wants to stick around and keep talking about this, I'll start a space up as soon as this one finishes, and everyone's welcome to jump over there if you want to. And
Cool.
that's all.
Yeah, I'll probably hop in there and just listen for a bit. I got to go drive and run a few errands right now. But yeah, and then okay, Modern Leper, and yeah, you did get some. I think even the videos you got last night, some of them are better than your earlier ones. There's definitely, I feel like you're seeing the plasma thing that TTAL is seeing, right?
Yeah, and man, I've really been hesitant to say this, and I'm gonna just be super brief, and I'm super embarrassed to even say it. I'm 39. I was an agnostic atheist my whole life, non-religious completely. I went through some hardcore experiences about a year ago. Um, I won't go into the details, but I went blind for a good year and a half where I couldn't see. And I went through something spiritual where I started praying every day, and that's when weird experiences started happening to me. And before the orbs and before the mechanical things showed up, other things started happening as well. And I've got pictures, and I've been too embarrassed to even show them. But I think I'll put them out there at some point. And I apologize if I offended anybody, but for anybody who does have, and this I will say too, I don't necessarily believe that there was a quote I read recently that said something like, "It's a mountain, and there's many paths up to ascend it." So whatever your faith is or your belief system is, I'm not knocking you. But I do think love and positivity are really important at this point. So thanks again for everything, guys.
Hey, I'm 61 now, and let me tell you something. A word of advice: never ever apologize for what you believe in. Period.
Wow, it's great. Intense closer. Thank you guys, everyone. Thanks TTAL 313, Dean, Modern Leper, everyone in the audience. Thank you guys. Peace out.
Thank you. All right, I'll start up a space here in just a second if y'all want to hang.
Yeah, and Dean starting up the after one.